So, why do most modern games suck? Well, if you ask me, it's because modern games lack much of the charm, love, or effort that made retro games so memorable. I hate the term retro games, by the way. I like calling them old games. What exactly is considered a retro or old game, you ask? For the sake of this video, old will refer to any game made before 2005. Modern games have crazy high-quality graphics, amazing sound technology, high production value, you name it. All the good stuff that everybody loves, apparently. But modern games are usually a pain in my bloody ass to pick up and play. So, Iron Sword. What is Iron Sword? Iron Sword is not the most famous NES game. It's not technically or mechanically or thematically the best NES game. It's not on some greatest games list. There's no Iron Sword cosplay at the local conventions. You may not have ever even heard of it. I mean, it's not Mario or Zelda.
I mean, what will they come up with next? You get elephants, maybe right now. This is crazy. These Nintendo games, they're so good for the kids. The kids love them.
But it's a perfect example of why most modern games suck. Personally, it's one of my top 10 NES games of all time. Why? Because it does everything you'd expect a good game to do. So let me go over what it does. Let's start with just presentation. In the early 1990s, before the availability of the internet, kids relied heavily on their imaginations. For those of you who don't know what that is, your imagination is that iPad inside your head that shows you fancy pictures and videos and makes you do funny things. Imagination has the power to make something better than it is, it can make something worse than it is, but, for the purpose of this conversation, we'll talk about why imagination was important for early 90s gaming. I saw Iron Sword at a local store chain that no longer exists called Woolworth. Standing there, behind glass, like most NES games at the time. The cover had everything I could possibly want. It was a painting of a muscular warrior.
Hi, I'm Fabio.
Holding a giant sword with a volcano erupting in the background. Once the cover had pulled you in, the next important factor was the back of the box. This would typically include very bad screenshots of the gameplay and a quick summary of the story. You had to be careful though. Sometimes you would get an amazing cover, and the game itself would be completely different. In the case of Iron Sword, both the front cover and the back cover got me to the peak of my interest. I had a similar experience with Crystalis, also on the NES. When I saw this cover, I dreamt about what the game would play like. My imagination went nuts for weeks before I saw the game at my friend's house. The actual game was still pretty good, but the Crystalis that I made up in my mind, based on that cover, was something so amazing that no game could reproduce it. Anyway, most NES covers in America featured a beautiful piece of artwork. Sometimes drawn by a comic book artist or just a regular well-known artists of the time. Sometimes, we would want a game just for the cover alone, without a clue of what the game itself had to offer. I mean, look at fucking Sky Shark. Holy cow.
Covers gradually got lazier and lazier. Some covers just had horrible 3D models, or modified gameplay shots from the game. Many modern games don't even have physical releases anymore. So the cover doesn't even matter. And it's not like there isn't a demand for physical games. People pay crazy prices for special editions, drawn cover editions, old school cover editions, steel books, etc. There is a big market there. People still want physical media with nice covers. Publishers have just become lazy and greedy. What's the cheapest way to release a game without having to pay an artist to do the cover? Use AI and go all digital. So, if you're lucky enough to get a physical copy of a game you want with a cover that you enjoy, great. Buying a game digitally is a sterile, joyless exercise. Buying an NES game, like Iron Sword, back in the day, was a big life event. Especially for a poor little kid who had to play that same game for at least 6 months. If you picked a turd, too bad. Anyway, now that you purchased your 40GB digital modern game, make sure you have 40 gigs free on your hard drive. Because you probably won't. So, waste an hour of your life moving your data around, almost always erasing some other huge game you wanted to keep. Then, download the 40 gigs over your shitty Wi-Fi connection for the next 2 hours. Wowie, I'm having so much fun. I hope there isn't a 20 gig, day one update for this cool modern game in order for this thing to be playable. That's another thing. Some of these games aren't even finished on release day. They are full of bugs, glitches, and sometimes broken entirely. Compare that with Iron Sword. Put the game in, turn your NES on, and there it is. That whole pick up and play factor is missing in many modern games. Look, I'm being a bit dramatic here. I don't mind downloading my games on modern systems, or game updates, or bug fixes, etc. It makes load times faster. It patches broken games. Whatever, it's fine in the end. The whole process just takes away from the experience. Playing games, at a base level, is escapism. We want to escape life for a minute. I mean, video games are a huge part of my life now, but initially, they are a nice escape. You can't escape when you have to wait 2 hours for an update. The moment is gone, most times. Getting back to Iron Sword itself. The game is a solid platform adventure. You play as the hero, Kuros, looking for the evil Malkil. Your goal is to get all the magic items, assemble the legendary Iron Sword, and defeat all the evil elementals. The game delivers immediately. The controls are super tight. No lag, nice jump control, you get a little sword slash. It doesn't do much, but most of your attacks will come from special magic or if an enemy gets in your kill zone in front of you. Start pauses the game. Select brings up a menu which later has magic spells in it. Graphically, the game has great colors, sharp edges, beautifully designed levels, and great landscapes. My favorite is these secret rooms that are located all over the place. Most of the time, you find them accidentally. After 30 years of playing this game, I still love getting all the secret gems and items in these secret rooms. Each level has a mystical beast that's looking for an item. A golden egg, a golden fly, crown, some beer. Whatever, it's all fun. You find a different magic spell in each level that is necessary to defeating the boss of that level. But it also helps you cheat. The magic spells can grab items from far away. This is not really a hack. It seems like the designers of the game expected you to fuck with it. After every boss, you grab a piece of element that will help you forge the Iron Sword. The thing is, grabbing the metal removes your magic spell from the previous level. When I was a kid, we immediately broke the game. If you grab the metal with your magic while falling next to the exit, you go to the next level and bring the magic spell with you. This makes every level easier but doesn't really mess the game up that much. It's a real fun secret. Anyway, you repeat this through a handful of levels, then you fight the elements in their face form. Look, I don't know why you fight them this way. All I know is, I love it. Then, Malkil shows up, and his face explodes. What I haven't mentioned yet is the amazing music. This game was developed by Rare. They had worked on Battletoads and other great NES games of the time. The music in Iron Sword is perfect. This is easily some of the most memorable music of my youth. The caves, the clouds, the sound effects, you name it. Iconic NES music. Just listen to the last boss track. It's like, no matter what is wrong in your life, everything is going to be okay. No matter what pain or anxiety you have, things will be okay. That's the beauty of Iron Sword. That's the beauty of most good old games. They were simple. Good games are still simple. Same for modern movies, by the way. Which also suck ass, but we will talk about that in another video. Anyway, beating a 5 or 6 or even 10 level game in one sitting is a great formula. From a designer perspective, this was the goal at the time. When making a game, you need to tweak the difficulty properly. You don't want your audience to hate the game and rage quit. You want them to have a hard time. You want them to explore, you want them to lose, you want them to get frustrated. This is why old school games, NES games especially, were such a pain in the ass. The games trained us to face anxiety, to improve our dexterity, to think in ways we may not have thought before. Whether it was intentional or not. The games were difficult, and that made them fun. It made winning more rewarding. You could also pick them up and play. You'd get frustrated, then run away, then come back later. Modern games don't have this. Look, when I say modern games suck, I don't mean every single game sucks. I'm saying most games suck. I usually get pushback from people that say this is just nostalgia. You're just nostalgic about these old games you used to play. Yes, nostalgia has a role to play in remembering a video game. But it is in no way the defining factor of whether a game is good or not. It has very little to do with the topic of this video. It doesn't mean that because I'm nostalgic for Iron Sword, which I am, that all modern games suck. Or that my opinion on modern games sucking is incorrect. I can be nostalgic, and modern games can suck at the same time. In fact, I can be nostalgic for modern games too. Just because I like Elden Ring, and I am now a little nostalgic for that time I spent with it, doesn't suddenly make modern games not suck. Anyway, fuck nostalgia. It doesn't matter here. We're talking about modern game sucking. What happens when you buy or acquire a modern game? First off, the covers are shit. I talked about this before. Since it seems that the world is headed toward a no physical media future, it makes sense that covers suck or that everything is purchased digitally. But I have a sneaky feeling that this will all come back full circle. People want to own stuff. Especially games. Especially games they like. They love physical media. Anyway, you buy this digital game with some AI cover, you turn it on, and wow, the graphics are so nice. We are at the peak of graphics, button pressing, controls, sound, visuals, everything. There are committees of people sitting in conference rooms, deciding what needs to be in the game. By all metrics, modern games should all be amazing, all the fucking time. But how do they end up being so boring? Well, once you turn it on, you have anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours of backstory to sit through. I know, some are going to hate me for saying this. Most modern game story is garbage. Having to sit through the 20 to 40 minutes of story, unless it's the most important facts you need to know, takes you completely out of most gaming experiences, especially since most games are horrible at storytelling. I'm not saying I don't like story, or that games don't need a story. They just aren't good at making story. Modern game story is mostly exposition and shit dialogue. I always use modern horror games as an example. Silent Hill 2 is considered one of the great stories of gaming. I loved that game, still do. They didn't spoon feed you anything in that game. It was gradually revealed to you in many ways. Most of them visually. Modern horror games have ripped off Silent Hill 2 in so many bad ways that it's completely saturated the market with shitty game story. Most of them end up with the twist that
You were the killer all along. Get it? Get it?
Do you get
Do you get it? Do you get it?
Do you get it?
You were living a nightmare of your own creation. Do you get it? All those obvious clues we put everywhere didn't spoil it for you. Do you get
were
it?
the killer.
Do you get
This
it? This game is too fucking smart for you. Do you get it?
Do you get it?
Do you get it?
Do you get it?
Don't even get me started on the new Silent Hill games that recently came out. Or the Silent Hill 2 remake that looks worse and worse with every new trailer. What a mess our hobbies have turned into. I can't wait to see how much useless DLC will be in that game.
Do you get it?
I mean, not to focus too much on this, but holy shit. The majority of modern horror games, if they are not remakes, complete garbage. Walking simulators, where heavy-handed story is being shoveled into your gullet. As if you couldn't understand a bit of nuance or subtle storytelling. By the way, I'm not saying that a game can't have a good, complex story. What I notice about modern games is that they have an unnecessarily long and unnecessarily boring story. It almost always includes a ton of exposition. Facts that you don't need explained to you. Things that could be shown to you graphically by the game. Instead of having to sit there and listen to characters tell you. This goes for many RPGs of the early 2000s and 2010s too. You can't just pick up and play. You pick it up, download the huge patch, turn the game on, listen to 40 minutes of boring, unnecessary story, and then you turn it off and play Iron Sword cause you're so fucking bored. Also, why is the shopkeeper naked? Look. He's clearly wearing nothing under that apron. It looks like something out of a romance novel.
The shopkeeper's firm and shapely buttocks peeked out from beneath his apron, enticing customers with their alluring curves.
This guy was ahead of his time. Anyway, I often criticize modern games for their emphasis on microtransactions, those pay-to-win mechanics, and a massive lack of originality. Remakes are a perfect example of this. Not that I don't love remakes. But you can't just keep releasing the same shit over and over into eternity. Apparently nobody knows how to make new shit anymore. Many titles are rushed for release, resulting in unfinished, glitchy experiences that prioritize profit over player satisfaction. The worst part is their excessive hand-holding and dumbed-down gameplay mechanics. Trying to cater to a wider audience, whatever that means. But sacrifice the sense of challenge and depth that characterized games like Iron Sword. The over-reliance on cinematic experiences often leaves little room for player agency and exploration, limiting the immersive and interactive elements that were once present in the early gaming industry. While my opinion is completely subjective, one could argue that Iron Sword on the NES holds its own unique charm and appeal that sets it apart from these modern games. Iron Sword delivers that dreaded nostalgic experience, invoking a sense of simplicity and innocence that resonates with many players. But again, that's not what makes it a good game. There was an innocence back then. The fun of the game was the important part. Though technologically limited by today's standards, Iron Sword creates an immersive atmosphere that kindles feelings of gaming bliss. Yes, bliss. This gaming bliss is what we've been trying to recreate for the last 15 years. Iron Sword is like eating your favorite food. The game's straightforward gameplay mechanics, devoid of complicated controls or convoluted storylines, offer a refreshing break from today's overly complex games, allowing players to focus on the sheer joy of adventuring through challenging levels and defeating strange, but formidable, bosses. While modern games certainly have their own appeal, Iron Sword stands as a testament to the enduring appeal of classic game design and fun. Try having some fun sometime, modern developers. Anyway, that's it. Rant over.